Following a complete meltdown with the sitting US President Donald Trump, Elon Musk has now come full circle where he is probably now looking to invest elsewhere, as Trump has now threatened to put tariffs and other forms of taxes on Teslas and threatening to pull contracts on SpaceX contracts as well, which have been quite lucrative for him. One country in particular is the home of his birth, South Africa. And to say that there's been some reservations about his arrival back home is putting it mildly.
But soon might be welcomed in, and it could honestly be really good. It could provide internet to many South Africans and force the sector to provide cheaper, better internet to all of us. But obviously it's complicated because of who owns that internet company.
Elon Musk's team is insisting on getting something in writing from the South African delegation when it comes to being able to work and operate in South Africa. Starlink, that is.
A government gazette is now issued on Friday, has proposed a policy in which broad-based black economic empowerment will be eased to accommodate companies such as Starlink and other satellite services.
Our main real reason for being here is to foster trade and investment so that we are able to grow our economy.
Looking at Elon and how he runs his businesses, it's safe to say that there's always more to the story when it concerns him. Last year in 2024, Cyril paid a visit to his New York hotel, where it was obviously espoused that he was looking to secure business deals that were beneficial not just to Elon but also to us in South Africa as a whole.
Did a new era in the country.
Over the years, the ANC, which is the main party, continued to have other parties involved in the executive of the country to govern with it. We have now consolidated it on a voluntary basis, believing very firmly that there's a great deal of value in working together rather than in pulling in different directions. I should say that this development has been welcomed by even business people in our country.
And following these calls by Cyril, big businesses, which is Cyril's friend at the end of the day, has called for Elon to return home. Tesla is but only the first step. As one Daily Maverick article had stated, there are much more interests for Elon to spread his tentacles throughout South Africa, and Starlink is but only the first step. And how might Elon get Starlink operated in South Africa? Following much debate and contention over Starlink's arrival in South Africa, lawmakers have been going back and forth over a specific loophole as a circumvention method, since Elon Musk is not in agreement with the 26 to 30% that he has to mandatorily hand over to black ownership in South Africa.
So Elon is, of course, South African born. And the rules in South Africa currently says in the ICT sector that you have to sort of give away equity. So you have to give 30% of your company to black people. And Elon has refused to consider that option of giving away equity in his company. So South Africa has been working on a sort of workaround this black ownership option. There's something called equity equivalent. So you still invest in black businesses, but not giving away equity in your own company. But you invest in black businesses and infrastructure in the sector, in the country.
And that's where this man comes in, Solly Malatsi, our sitting Minister for Communications and Digital Technologies, who seeks to utilize this loophole to make it more attractive for Elon to invest and start up Starlink in South Africa.
This is not an amendment. A policy direction basically seeks to, achieve one thing, which is one, to clarify the introduction of equity equivalent investment programs in the ICT sector, particularly looking at the allocation or applications for licensing in the telecommunications space. Currently, we have a situation where in terms of the regulator, that being ICASA's regulations, do not align with the overall spirit of the ICT sector codes. And what the policy directive seeks to do is to get policy certainty and clarity, because you would know that equity equivalent programs part of the legislated instrument for empowerment programs in the country. It is envisaged through the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act and has been applicable in other sectors of the economy. And even in the ICT space, there are companies that are currently operating in South Africa through that vehicle.
And he's not wrong. I've actually looked it up. There are a number of companies that have used this circumventory sort of loophole to avoid that direct 30% that they are required to give like ownership in South Africa. Some examples that I found include the likes of Microsoft, IBM, and most recently, JP Morgan Chase. They've even got a corny half isiZulu, half isiXhosa name for this particular fund. Now we have to take note that even though it is within the confines of the law, it's like some weird loophole of the law, I'm not entirely sure that companies can be trusted to dispense with this investment privately by themselves, because we all know corporations have histories of funneling money away in secret tunnels and all that sort of stuff, and ultimately just avoiding accountability, keeping shareholders and investors happy while pocketing extra lumps of cash for CEOs and other executives. So me personally, I am circumspect about this entire thing. I can't entirely trust it. And by the way, if you're noticing the blanket, it is freezing in my apartment. I am quite sure soon that with climate change and everything, heating and ventilation and also insulation standards will have to become a thing in the city of Johannesburg. But that's probably for another video entirely. Climate change is something that's quite close to my heart. But anyway, back to the video. So a friend of mine had actually reached out to me on LinkedIn and said there was more to Elon Musk's Starlink approach in South Africa, and I thought he might have something. It goes back to this Daily Maverick article that talks about how Trump spoke to the South African delegation that arrived at the White House about specific rare earth minerals. Rare earths that are used in magnets in just about every high-tech gadget on Earth, and especially electric vehicles. Trump posited that here in South Africa, we are in possession of these rare earth minerals, which are not only of a strategic advantage to us ourselves, but also in the space of a much larger technological onset. Many of the companies that Musk owns, of course, are relying on these rare earth minerals for the next phase in battery technology, and especially in his most coveted and storied company, Tesla. And why do I say manganese? Number one, South Africa is the world's largest producer of manganese. However, we do face challenges even though we have the largest deposit of manganese of any country on Earth, which I think is about 7.2 million metric tons a year. It's crazy to think about.
Chippy Borwa mine, owned by Chippy Intel Manganese Mining, is now fully operational. With a 60-year mine life and a 2.4 million ton per annum capacity, Chippy will be among the 4 largest South African sources of manganese.
South Africa has its first manganese plant. It was launched by the Minister of Science and Technology, Naledi Pandor, in Nelspruit in Mpumalanga.
I think for me, if you look at the industry that I'm in manganese, and maybe even declare it as a strategic mineral resource, because we represent 80% of world reserves, and it's a commodity that actually tracks steel. Where there's steel growth, infrastructure development, roads infrastructure, port development, you will see manganese in there.
So in the EV space, or at least in the battery space for the electric vehicle market, manganese is now touted as the next material that is going to take battery technology forward. In years previous, manganese was not deemed a suitable material because it didn't hold enough of a density or a charge in the battery. But advancements in technology, like always, have now touted manganese as less environmentally detrimental than lithium. It is now able to hold in the cathode of the battery a much more energy dense charge, and it's just cheaper to produce and extract in the first place. Going back to the problems or the challenges with manganese in South Africa, we are not dissimilar to any other African country in the sense that we do not add value to the resource. We can extract it and we can export it, but we do not refine much of it. This, I think, is where Elon comes into the picture, since he has opened battery refinement plants in Houston, Texas, and other parts of the world. He has circumvented the normal supply chain where he used to get his batteries from Panasonic and has now basically in-housed the entire process, which makes him valuable to us because if we can market and make clear our value to him and his interests, it could be possible that Elon might be willing to open up a battery refinement plant in South Africa. And this goes back to the issue with Starlink. Musk is not willing to give over that 26 to 30% of direct ownership. He is maybe open to the equity equivalent program, and that could set up a template for him maybe expanding his interests in opening up something like a battery refinement plant here in South Africa for Tesla. But to better understand how this might happen, we do need to go into the specifics and the legal frameworks that govern mineral resources in South Africa. South Africa's mineral governance is primarily guided by the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act, which was enacted to ensure equitable access to mineral resources while promoting sustainable development. However, challenges remain in balancing economic growth, environmental stability, and social equity. The government has identified minerals like manganese, platinum group metals, vanadium, rare earth elements, and lithium as crucial for the global energy transition. South Africa aligns with this vision but faces hurdles in implementation due to institutional inefficiencies and policy inconsistencies. So these regulatory holes, loopholes in our framework is probably something none of us are strangers to in South Africa. However, we do need to take into account the darker side of Elon's business network and how he conducts business as a whole. We're looking at Grok AI in Tennessee. In his bid to catch up with the competition, he was seen to have bussed in extra gas-powered turbines which were not cleared by the environmental authorities in the US. Those were then seen to have been polluting the environment, especially the air quality for local residents. SpaceX, that was set up in a small Texas coastal town, has been seen to have been causing earth tremors, earthquakes that probably make residents' windows shatter, leaving a lot of soot in the air and also on the beach sides. And this is not even forgetting some of the abuses both ecologically and socially and economically which have been taking place in South Africa.
But beneath this red soil lies 80% of the world's manganese. It's a booming industry. So why is this community still poor? When mining rights were nationalized in 2004, it presented huge opportunities for black empowerment. Stefan Sprumer was a journalist for the Mail and Guardian at the time.
The Department of Minerals said it's going to give these rights only to BEE companies. And then technical and financial partners would be brought in after the fact of the award of the mining rights.
Enter billionaire Russian oligarch Viktor Vekselberg, owner of the Renova Group, a conglomerate with interests in telecoms, energy, and yes, mining.
Vekselberg is a typical Russian oligarch.
So these are all things that we need to consider. And Elon, at the end of the day, is a businessman. He is going to look for the best deal and also to look for ways in which he can circumvent local regulations, policies, and frameworks in order to get the best operating conditions for his business, as well as the best return for his shareholders. If we are to enter into agreement with Elon and by extension Trump, even though they're still fighting, we have to make sure that we are playing our cards right and maximizing what we are seeing that we can get from this deal. Otherwise, we will once again be falling behind the pack, playing ourselves and sitting with what we believe is an incompetent government. Hopefully, I think that all of this time taken in Parliament deliberating over Starlink is probably with the knowledge that it could be a template by which Elon is going to use to bring his other businesses back home. But is it going to be for the better or is it going to be for the worse? We have to decide that before we take a resolute decision. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that some of the aspects of this video were enlightening for you. And if you'd like more, please like and subscribe. I do enjoy making these and I'll continue to try and make more. I'll see you guys next time.
An irreplaceable ingredient in the manufacture of steel.
What we think is very important about this new mine is that it is probably the last open cast sustainable manganese mine in the world of that quality of manganese. And we think that in the long term it's going to be one of the significant low-cost producers of manganese, of quality manganese.